Hi, welcome back to the channel. So, in this Dislyte Academy series, we're going to talk in deep details about the Fatum sisters. But first things first, pardon me if my voice is quite soft or a bit hoarse because I currently have COVID right now and I just came back from hospital yesterday. So I'm on house arrest for the next 10 days. But let's get straight into the Fatum sisters now. So I tried to pull the Fatum sisters yesterday, but I failed to get them, although I got tricky in return, so I couldn't complain. But I cannot use the actual Esper for my explanation here, so we are going to use the Esper overview to take a look at Fatum sisters' abilities. So I assume all of you lucky guys who got Fatum sisters are not going to spend any abilimon on Fatum sisters. So we are going to see whether their abilities are still usable without abilimons or they need abilimons to function well in their lineups. So the first skill is only increase the trigger chance to 80% instead of 60% and increase damage to 110% instead of 100%. So this is still usable without any abilimons. And the second skill increase the healing amount to 18% instead of 50%. And reduce the cooldown by 1 turn. So this is still also usable without the abilimons. Then the third skill, it increased the damage to 60% instead of 50%. So this totals into 120 damage instead of 100 damage. And then reduce 20% the target's AP instead of 10% here, the further AP reduction. So the AP reduction from Fatum sisters reduce the enemy's AP per hit. So this translates into 20%, 20%, and then another 10%. So that means it's 50%. So 60% AP reduction instead of 50% AP reduction if you use abilimons. So this is still also usable because 60% and 50% is not much of a gap if you don't use any abilimons. So the biggest problem that you have if you don't use any abilimons to your Fatum sisters is going to be the cooldown here, which is quite long for 5 turns and 6. But the thing is that is still bearable because of the unique attributes of Fatum sisters. So if you go to the Esper gallery and take a look at the Fatum sisters attributes, they actually have the attributes of a DPS Esper instead of a support Esper. They have a high attack here. So if you actually compare these stats to a Tanks one, then Tanks one have a similar attributes as the Fatum sisters. So if you give the Fatum sisters a DPS relic, they can become a secondary damage dealer in your lineups. Although they won't deal as much damage as an actual damage dealer because of their low percentage attack damage from their skill sets, but they can become a secondary damage dealer in the sense that they are a support that can also deal damage to your enemies. So the biggest advantage of having a Fatum sisters is that they are well-rounded. They are jack of all trades in the sense that they can become a secondary in everything that they do. They can become a secondary controller in your lineups by reducing the enemy's AP. They can become a secondary buffer in your lineups by giving invincibility, speed up, and defense up. And they can become a secondary damage dealer in your lineups by dealing damage while their skills are on cooldown. So that's the things that they can do. They are a well-balanced Espers and they can do every single thing by themselves in your lineups. So if you give them Zeus relics, they can also stun their enemies because this hits 2 times. So this gives quite a chance to stun the enemies using the Zeus relics. And if you have troubles with their long cooldowns, you can also give them Ocean Waves relic, which can reduce their cooldowns by quite a lot. You can also give them like any DPS relics if you feel like to. But the biggest advantage of having the Fatum sisters actually comes from their captain ability, because this is the upgraded version of the Sender's captain ability. So all these times we always use Sender as our speed captain lead in any PvE content. So having the Fatum sisters actually increase your speed by another 10% compared to having Sander as your captain. And also the biggest problem of having Sander as the only PvE captain lead is that here in the Dislyte lands. So if you see that in the shadow stream, most of the time in the shadow streams, a lot of people keep using Sander as their captain. You see, so they are still using Sander as their captain because they need as many speed as possible. But the thing is, the only Esper that gives a lot of speed and can also deal damage is only Sander in this case. So Sander, being an Inferno Esper, can have a lot of miss dealing damage to the Shadow Stream because the Shadow Stream is a flow monster. So having the Fatum sisters can actually replace the Sander here. Although Fatum sisters won't deal as much damage as Sander, but they can be a nice addition to replace Sander in doing the Shadow Stream for you guys. So the thing is that the biggest advantage of this captain ability is not only the speed. So something that most of the players forget about is that some Espers like Sander, Li Guang, and Gabriel, they get more damage the more speed they have. So this captain ability, the speed captain ability for this kind of Esper actually translate into more damage. So if you have Fatum sisters as the lead here, and you put Sander, Li Guang, and Gabriel in their lineups, they can also increase the overall damage that come out from the other Espers like Sander, Li Guang, and Gabriel. So you can actually make a speed team using the Fatum sisters as the captain and increase the damage further of your Sander and then Gabriel. So I can see a lot of uses of them in terms of a Sentinel run. So in the Sentinel run, you can have the Fatum sisters as one of the captain in one of the team there. And the thing is about the speed captain ability here that it can also translate into more damage for any other Espers aside from those who use speed as their damage. So for example, like if you take an example of Gaius, if you see here, Gaius damage comes a lot from the second skill here, the God King Judgment. So if you can manage to turn into a God mode using the third skill and then use his second skill, that's the biggest damage that comes from from Gaius, the burst damage. So let's say in the Sentinel run that you do every 2 days, you can only manage to squeeze in like 2 God King Judgment using your Gaius. If you increase the speed using Fatum sisters as your lead, there is a possibility that you can manage to squeeze in that third God King Judgment or maybe the fourth God King Judgment. So if you usually can only squeeze in like 2 God King Judgment, which translates into like 200% of your Gaius capabilities. So the third God King Judgment will translate into his another 100% capabilities of your Gaius. So that increase your Gaius damage by 50% actually. And if you can manage to squeeze in another God King Judgment, so that makes it 4 God King Judgment instead of 2 God King Judgment that you usually have. That increase Gaius damage by 100%. So increasing the speed here really works well in Sentinel Hunt and also later on in the Infinite Tower. Although you cannot use the captain ability in Infinite Tower, but the biggest contribution from Fatum sisters in the Infinite Tower is the AP reduction here. Because most of the time in the Infinite Tower, you will always use espers like Eira, Medusa, and then Longyan, Pritzker, all those AP controller, AP manipulator, and then the disabler to try and keep the enemy from not moving at all. And having the Fatum sisters here really helps a lot in keeping the enemies in check, because they also give speed up. One more thing about the speed up is that because most of the time that you play around with Sanders and Li Guang and their DPS espers, the Sander, you fail to notice that speed up also contributes a lot in dealing damage, because for espers like Sander, increasing their speed by using speed up actually increase their damage too. So having attack up and a speed up actually increase their Sander's damage by a lot. But most of the time we only bring Dahlia in our lineups. So Dahlia increasing only attack up and critical rate up doesn't increase Sander's potential to maximum. So if you can bring also Fatum sisters in your lineup, will increase Sander's damage by a lot, because they can give speed up in the form of captain ability, and they can also give speed up here using their second skill. So for espers like Sanders, this can make your Sander really strong if you have Fatum system. And also for espers like any other DPS espers like Gaius, it's the same reasoning. If you give speed up to Gaius, then you will have more chance for Gaius to move, and the more moves he make, the more chance he can transform into God mode and use the King Judgment here. So speed up can translate into more DPS in a long fight. And also the long cooldown here, like if you think about PvP terms, the long cooldown here is actually doesn't matter, because most of the time if you want to bring the Fatum sisters, you will want to give a lot of speed to Fatum sisters, so you will most likely go with a Windwalker relic here. And if you manage to get Fatum sisters to move after your Dahlia, because I think the Ascension for Fatum sisters only gives speed by +7, so having a speed of 101 doesn't really make them the fastest, because Dahlia have 102 speed with Ascension of +10 speed. So Fatum sisters will always going to lose compared to Dahlia in terms of speed. So she will move after your Dahlia. So after your Dahlia move, Fatum sister is going to move, and then they will reduce the enemy's AP by 50% or 60% if you use a healing mode. And that will always going to guarantee that your whole teammates are going to move instead of the enemy's espers. So if your whole teammates manage to move, you can end the PvP battles in 1 or 2 turns. So the cooldown doesn't really matter, because most of the time also, if you think about it, like all of your legendary espers, even though they have long cooldown skills, they don't really matter if the battle ends very fast. So it only matters, the cooldown only matters if you are planning to go into a long fight. So Fatum sisters, if you are planning to use them in your tank team or health team, HP team, so you going to need that ability mods, or maybe you can get lucky using your ocean waves. So that's the thing about their cooldowns. So that's the biggest advantage of having Fatum sisters. So you can use them for many contents, because they are a secondary healer, secondary controller, and secondary damage dealer. They can be every single thing, but they are not the best at everything. So the biggest advantage is in the Infinite Tower and also in the Sentinel Hunt, and you can also sometimes use them in the PvP. So that's my intake about the Fatum sisters. They are not OP, but they are great to have. So that's all about Fatum sisters. Let me know what you guys think. So I'll see you in the next series. If you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.